I've been in the Navy for 19 years. Of those 19 years, 12 of them I have been a legalman. As a legalman, I have the privilege to help enforce the policies and rules governed by the Uniform Code of Military Justice. What I'm going to speak to you about today is how to The Navy gets its authority to perform non-judicial punishment from the Uniform Code of Military Justice, Article 15, which was established in 1958. There is also direction contained in the Judge Advocate General's Manual 5800.7 Echo, Chapter 1. Now, the first step in this process is a sailor has to commit some form of misconduct. For example, a sailor gets into a fist fight with another sailor and detained by security. Security would do a preliminary